we want to factor, and this time notice there are 4 separate terms. So I have 4 terms, and when you factor with 4 terms, you're going to factor by grouping. So color coding this, I'm just making the front 2 terms blue and the back 2 terms red, because that's where your focus is. Now looking at the blue and thinking what's in common to just the blue, this is made out of W times W, and this is made out of 2 times 2 times W. What's in common to both is going to be a single W. Then what's left over, if I take a W out of W squared, I'm going to have a W, and if I take a 4W out of, or excuse me, a W out of 4W, I'm gonna have left a 4. What you'll notice is whenever you do this, whatever ended up in parentheses here is going to end up in parentheses here. It's not a coincidence, that's gonna happen each time. So looking at the red for what's in common, a 2 and a W and an 8 is made out of 2 times 2 times 2, so there's a 2 in common to both of those. And then what's left over for 2W is going to be just the W. And what's left over for the 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now you can redistribute to verify. 2 times W gets me back to 2W, 2 times 4 gets me back to 8. But once again, notice that what's in parentheses in blue and in red, they're the same. And so we're going to factor the bigger one. We're saying what's in common to both the blue and the red, and we're writing that out front. So that's the W plus 4. And then in parentheses, you're going to put what's left over. And what's left over is this W plus 2. So I have W plus 2 as the leftover. Now when you finish these, it's a good idea to just double check. You don't have to necessarily do that on your paper, but just in your head. If you take this and you FOIL it, you're going to get back to the original. So foiling what we have sitting here to check, W times W is W squared. Outside, W times 2 is 2W. Inside, 4 times W is 4W. Last, 4 times 2 is 8. And if you compare this to what we started with, these two have been switched, but they're equal to each other. So we know we did it correctly. Okay, so I'm gonna run through a couple more here. So this next one, just color coding it to focus on the front 2 are blue, the back 2 are red. So looking what's in common in the blue ones. So there's no number in front in common, but this one and this one both have an X and another X. So there's an X squared in common in the blue ones. Then what's left over if I take out an X squared is going to be an X. And if I take out an X squared out of this one, I'll have a minus 2 left over. So I have X minus 2. Now in the back half, what's in common? The biggest number that fits into 6 and 12 is 6. And they don't have any variables in common. So I'm just taking out a 6, and then in parentheses, what's left over? So taking a 6 out of 6x leaves me with x. Taking a 6 out of negative 12, 12 divided by 6 is 2, so we're going to have left a minus 2. Again, just redistribute to verify. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times negative 2 is negative 2x squared. 6 times x is 6x, and 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. And then it's not a coincidence that what's in parentheses is a match. And so that's what we're going to take out front, is that match, that x minus 2. And then in parentheses, we're going to put what's left over, and what's left over is x squared plus 6. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time foiling, but I just want to remind you every time, if you FOIL this back together, it's going to get you back to the original. Okay, we're really just undoing FOIL here. Okay, this one here, color coding it once again. The front half in blue, the back half in red. Look for what's in common for 10x cubed and negative 15x squared. They both have, 10 and 15 can both be divided by 5, and they both have an x times x in common. So I'm going to take out both a 5 and an x squared. Then I'm going to put in parentheses what's left over. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and I've taken out an x squared, so I still have an x. Right here, 15 divided by 5 is 3, so I have a negative 3, and I've taken out both x squared, so that's gone. Redistribute to verify. 5x squared times 2x gets me back to 10x cubed. 5x squared times negative 3 gets me back to 15x squared. Okay, now looking at what's in common in the red, but keep in mind, I know already that what's going to be in parentheses will be a match. And this is a huge hint, knowing that these are going to match. So when you get to the back half, you're thinking, what did I take out to get 2x minus 3? Well, that's a negative, and that's a positive. So I'm going to need to take out a negative number, because a negative times a positive will get me back to a negative, and a negative times a negative will get me back to a positive. And then the biggest number that fits into 12 and 18 is 6. So I'm taking out a negative 6. Multiplying that back through just to verify, negative 6 times 2x is negative 12x, and negative 6 times negative 3 is 18. Okay, in the blue and the red, we have that matching 2x minus 3. So that's what I'm taking out front. And then in parentheses, I'm going to write down what's left over. And what's left over is 5x squared and a minus 6. You can FOIL just to verify, and if you did FOIL this, you'll see that you get back to the original, and then you know for sure that you did it correctly. All right, so last one here. These last two kind of have subtle differences here. I had to take out a negative. So this one here, let's color code it. The front half blue, the back half red. Looking for what's in common for the blue. 10 and 2 are both even. The biggest number that fit into 10 and 2 are 2. And then x squared and x, there's an x in common. So I'm going to take out a 2 and an x. What's left over? 10 divided by 2 is 5, and I've taken out an x from the x squared, so I still have an x. So 5x. Now if you take a 2x out of 2x, don't accidentally think that that's 0. When you redistribute, you've got to get back to this one. If I only put 5x here, 2x times 5x gets me 10x squared, but I wouldn't get back the 2x. So taking a 2x out of 2x, that's like 2x divided by 2x, and I get 1. Redistributing to verify, 2x times 5x is 10x squared, and 2x times 1 is 2x. Okay, now in the back half, if you started looking at it as what's in common to both, 5x and 1, you don't see anything in common. But remember, the number 1 is always in common to everything. So I am going to take out a 1. But another way to think of it is, as soon as you have what's in parentheses in the front half, you know for sure that what's in parentheses in the back half is going to match. So now thinking about what did I take out of 5x plus 1 to get me 5x plus 1, it's just going to be a plus 1. You've got to take something out, so a 1 or a negative 1. In this case, it's 1. So what's matching in the blue and in the red is the 5x plus 1. So let's take that out front. And then what's left over, we're going to put in parentheses. And what's left over is 2x and the plus 1. If you want to verify, I could FOIL that back together. And if I FOIL it back together, I'll get back to the original.